We overthink everything. And I wrote this video down a while back when I just realized how complicated I was making things. And I realized that I wasn't really seeing things for what they are. In my last video, I spoke about that and seeing things for what they are. And this one's kind of branching off of that, but it's overthinking everything. It's turning the smallest problems into the biggest problems and thinking about what I should do and how I should do it and what if it doesn't work and what if it's not right and just all these things. And I wrote this down because I saw a video of this guy who was like traveling the world with no money, and he was like staying like wherever he could find to sleep and eating whatever he could find to eat. Like, it just made me realize like this guy was going traveling the world, not like worrying about anything and not like overthinking like what if this doesn't happen, and just like all these things. Like, he was like, the way I saw it was like he was really living free will. Like, I wrote down, life is like a free roam world where we could just like do whatever. Like, obviously don't want to go do bad things, but like we could just go help that guy on the side of the road, because why not? We could go freaking travel the world with no money, because why not? Like, don't take this out of context here, but you know what I mean? Like, we could. And when we plan like vacations, we often just like plan it out like so perfectly, like top 10 tourist attractions and where we're going to eat, where we're going to stay, where the perfect schedule. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with planning that. But I think that a lot of times good things can come from unexpected things and things that we didn't plan or we can't plan, and living life not taking everything so serious. There are a lot of serious things in life, but just living life and just being chill about everything. But the problem here isn't planning, it's not planning that trip, but it's thinking that we have to control every detail and every moment of the day before we can enjoy life, and having this set plan that we have to follow and have to do this. But life is more loose than that. Life is more free than having a set plan, set schedule every day, every week, and just following it. I'm going to break this video down into 6 parts here. And the first one is, planning is wise, trying to control everything isn't. Overthinking often comes from wanting certainty. Some of life's best moments aren't planned. Jesus lived with purpose, not panic. How do we stop overthinking? And I'm going to break that down into 4 parts. And then finally, trust God more than your plan. So to get started, planning is wise, but trying to control everything isn't. We can obviously prepare for things to come, and I'm not telling you to not plan, not have plans and whatever, but like I was just saying, like, it's about being more loose and being more open to opportunities and different things that we wouldn't usually do, I guess. And in James chapter 4, verse 13 through 15, he says, "Now listen, you who say, 'Today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money.' Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, 'If it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that.'" This verse is perfect here for what I'm trying to explain. He literally explains this. Like, he says, "You who say today or tomorrow we will go to this city, spend a year there, carry on and make money on business, whatever." He's not telling us to not make plans. He's not telling us to not prepare for the future. He's just saying that we're not in control of tomorrow. All we have is today and this present moment. We should make plans with humility, remembering that our lives belong to God. And he says, you ought to say, "If it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that." Trying to guarantee the outcome of whatever's going to happen is something only God can do. And that's why we should trust God daily and trust God throughout our faith and just allow his will to be done in our lives. Which leads me to the next point here, is that overthinking often comes from wanting certainty. Overthinking isn't really about the decision. It's not really if I should do this or if I should do that. It's thinking about if it's right. It's thinking about, is this going to work out? Is this going to be right? Is this going to benefit me? Like, it's not actually making that decision. It's every other part of the decision. It's everything that comes with it. It's wanting that certainty of knowing this is right before we're willing to move. And we might often think that we'll take the next step when we'll know how everything is going to turn out. But the truth is that life doesn't work that way. We'll never actually know how something is going to work out. We'll never actually know what's going to happen from a certain decision. And right now, I'm also overthinking a lot about my future because I don't know where my current opportunities are leading. I don't know what is going to happen, or what I'm going to do with my life, really. But in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 through 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." Lean not on your own understanding is what he says. It doesn't mean to stop thinking, stop planning. It means to not make the foundation of your life your own understanding, to not think that you need to know everything, to not think that you need to make every right decision. It's trust in that God. It says to trust in the Lord with all your heart, that God is doing things for good, that God is doing things right for your life. That is where the trust begins. And our faith isn't going to remove uncertainty. It's not going to remove any doubts and any worries, but it's just teaching us who to trust in the middle of it, teaching us how to trust God and things like that. And this leads me to the third point here, is that some of life's best moments aren't planned. If we go back to the travel analogy I was kind of explaining, where this guy was just going about everything with no money and just figuring out kind of along the way. And if we imagine ourselves arriving somewhere with everything scheduled, where we're going to eat, where we're going to stay, what we're going to do, we'd probably still have an amazing trip. Like, it'd still be a lot of fun. But what if the best part we didn't schedule? Like, maybe we went out to coffee somewhere and met a friend and had an unexpected conversation because we didn't plan that coffee trip, but we went there because we didn't have anything to do. And maybe we get invited to some local event and stumble across a place that we would have never searched for. Like, this is such a strange example, but it's what I'm just trying to explain here is the freedom of life and just being able to do something for fun, like not taking it so serious, not wanting to do something because of the way you feel or because it's not on your schedule or routine, but doing it just cuz, why not? But God often works through ordinary interruptions. He works through people, conversations, opportunities. And if we're living our life so controlled and there's no room for that interruption, then we may miss what God is doing. And in Luke chapter 12, verse 27, it says, "Consider how the wildflowers grow. They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these." Jesus is pointing to flowers and how beautiful they are. And the richest man in the Bible, in all his splendor, wasn't even dressed like a flower. Something so simple, just a flower growing in the wild, is more beautiful than the richest man. And he's teaching his followers here to slow down and notice what God is doing around them through the flowers, through nature and everything. And sometimes we just become so focused on what's next and we stop noticing what's right in front of us. But this leads me to the fourth point here, is that Jesus lived with purpose, not panic. In the Gospels, we can notice that Jesus wasn't really in a rush. Like, he was never frantic. He had a mission. He knew why he was there. He wasn't constantly rushing from one thing to the next. He stopped for people. He listened to them. He ate with them. He noticed the people that everyone else overlooked: the crippled, the beggars, the poor. And in Mark chapter 10, verse 49, it says, Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." And the context of this is when a blind man is calling out to Jesus, the crowd is trying to move on, and Jesus stops and he gives attention to this blind man. And it's just this simple moment reminds us to slow down and see these opportunities that we often might miss if we're in such a rush. So how do we actually stop overthinking? Because you always hear stop overthinking and stop doing this and that, but how do you stop doing that? And I'm going to break this down into 4 parts here. And the first one that I want to say is ask yourself if you're trying to be wise or if you're trying to be certain, because those are 2 different things. You can make a wise decision without actually knowing how it's going to turn out, and only God knows how it's going to turn out. But if you're trying to be certain and you're trying to figure out how it's going to happen, how it's going to work out, how it's going to play out, and all these things, then that's trying to control the outcome, and that's something that only God can do. So try and make sure you're making a wise decision, not based off of control and trying to be certain. The next thing is take the next faithful step. This is just figuring out what God has put in front of you, this next step that God has put in front of you, and then doing that. Whether that's being baptized, whether that's starting some sort of way to spread God's word, even just talking to that person that you know needs a friend, or that you know you need to clear the air with. Just do that, and then trust Him with the following steps, and just let God guide you and take that next faithful step. And then the third thing is to leave room for God to interrupt your plans. What I mean by this is just not scheduling your life so tightly that there's no room for people. Some of God's greatest works come through our lives in unexpected moments. And this is kind of broad here, but just not like denying everything. Maybe that friend asked you to hang out. Maybe your family asked you to go somewhere, and just not saying no because you have to do this thing or because you have to do that thing, and just being more open to things you would normally say no to, I guess. And then the last thing here is to be fully present. If you're always thinking about tomorrow, you're gonna miss today. But if you're always thinking about the destination, you're gonna miss the journey. But just focusing on today, focusing on right now, realizing what you're doing, being present there, and then just enjoying that moment. And then in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 through 7, it says to not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. It's not saying that every prayer and every question is going to be answered immediately, but that He promises that God's peace will guard our hearts and our minds, that our peace comes from bringing it to God and giving it to God and trusting that He will take care of it and not trying to figure out everything on our own. So the last thing I want to talk about is to trust God more than your plan. God isn't asking us to stop planning and stop thinking and just, go through the motions, but it's recognizing that this opportunity may not work out. But if God opened this door, or God's will wants this for my life, then it will work out. And if it doesn't work out, it wasn't a part of God's will. And that's something I've learned, and something so powerful for me, is literally that. Like, God gave me this opportunity. If it works out, it's a part of His plan. If it doesn't, it's not. So either way, that's how I trust God. And when we give our trust to God, I think that brings a great sense of freedom, a freedom to enjoy life, to adapt, to accept all different things, and trust Him when we don't know what's next. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm a little bit sick right now. I'm tired. Might not be the best video I've ever made, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope planted a seed in someone's life or helped you, and stay tuned for the next one.